Hello everyone. Since it's an international event, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to one and all present here. Hope you and your family are doing good in this pandemic situations. I, Professor Jagdish Pimple, Head of Information Technology Department of Nagpur Institute of Technology, Nagpur, Maharashtra, India, and convener of First International E-Summit 2020 on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. I heartily welcome you all for the third day session first at the International E-Summit 2020 on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. Hope you have enjoyed and learned a lot many new things from the past session which was delivered by Anju Kiran Kumar Mam. Now today it's an honor to have with us a very famous and eminent keynote speaker, Ms. Jeevantika Lingalwar Ma'am. She's president and founder of Navicon.com, Dublin, Ireland. We have also another keynote speaker, Mr. John Patrick Shaw, CEO and founder of Navicon, Dublin, Ireland. I heartily welcome you, sir and ma'am. Jeevantika ma'am, she's a co-founded the company. She was co-founded the company in July 2019 to lead to move to digestion. She is a member of IEEE and Engineers Ireland. She has a master's degree in cloud computing from National College of Ireland and she completed her bachelor's from Nagpur University. Jeevantika ma'am was CTO Primeline from June 2019 until recently and implemented Primeline's digitization strategy with Microsoft and Huawei. Prior to working a Primeline, she worked in software development for Com1 Communication. She was also founded International Women in Ireland, manages India Ireland Connect and it's active in IEEE. Really, ma'am, your biography is very much enlightening us. With this, I would like to request Jivantika ma'am to start her session on fundamentals of quantum computing. Madam, please.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning and hi, hello everybody. My name is Jeevantika, and it's an immense pleasure to join all of you and really thank you. I hope all of you are safe in this pandemic, global pandemic, and all your loved ones are keeping safe. I would like to thank NIT and Arpit sir for inviting me and also congratulate them for hosting this first International E-Summit on such a big level. Um, I would just give a little bit background about me. I did my bachelor's in computer science from SB Jain Institute, Nagpur, which some of you might know. And I have been to NIT college a lot of times for my semester exams, so which was quite fun. I did my after my bachelor's, I went to Mumbai to work as a software developer in one of the company in Mumbai. Later on, I can I ask everybody to mute your audio because it's kind of disturbing a bit. Thank you. So later on, I came to Ireland to do my master's in cloud computing. After which, I got a job in one of the largest logistics company in Ireland, and I was working as a chief technology officer in Ireland. While working, I felt that there should be something more because there were so many Indian students in Ireland and there were no platform for them to communicate. So myself and John, we started India Ireland Connect. So John was my CIO in my previous company, and we started India Ireland Connect with over 3,000 people currently in it. And it's really a very huge platform for people who want to come over for education or business or need any consulting regarding it, which is free for all. I am also a founder president of International Women in Tech with over 2000 plus international women in it, and I have been hosting a lot of events in International Women in Tech. um, I am also a president and founder of Navicon.com, which is an online consulting platform for a lot of people. And starting of Navicon.com was basically to connect India Ireland. and it's more of overseas education, business, and how do people really want to come to Ireland to to bring their business to Ireland and to start a new journey, start an overseas journey. I am also a member of IEEE, which everyone knows about IEEE, such a big platform. But I know you guys are in this session since 3 days, and you've been hearing a lot about AI, machine learning, how does it work. But today we'll just jump a little bit out of the way. It won't be really AI and machine learning, but it's more of a quantum computing. And I know some of you might have heard about quantum computing, but for some, it's more of like, what the hell is quantum computing? And this word has been in a lot of sci-fi movies we had already seen, but to be very honest, nobody remembers that time that okay, quantum computing is something that really has a future. Even me, like when I used to watch movies, sci-fi movies, I've heard about this name a lot, but never really know that this could be a future, this could be a nearly coming future. There are so many books about it. We have seen so many movies regarding time travel, quantum jump, the dimensions, how does it work. But really, at that time, it wasn't really on a very great or huge boom that, okay, that this quantum computing could be our future and it's going to be more interesting at this point than any other technology. For me, I don't know, like a lot of people gaze at the sky and think, how does the universe work? What are the constellations? What does the star says? And how really our planet work? Is there any other extraterrestrial planet outside? We usually see on TV that there are so many news regarding aliens and extraterrestrials. We really think at sometimes, does this really exist or it's just a hoax? But at this point in today's world, quantum computing has answers to all. I will share some slides, and I have added few videos for you guys to understand in the layman terms, because I know it would be a lot to take, but I've tried to make it as simple as possible so you guys enjoy it. So I'll just turn off my video and share something. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it is visible, ma'am. Yeah, you can proceed.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much. So now, quantum computing. What is quantum computing? Quantum computing is the use of quantum phenomena such as superposition and entanglement to perform computation. Now, this is too vast and too technical to dive in, and some of you are like, "What is superposition? What is entanglement? What is quantum computing?" First, so quantum computing is unlike our classical computers that we use every day, our traditional computers. So, as you all know, our classical computers works with bits, but our quantum computer works with qubits, that is quantum bits. Now, to put it in an example, consider a light switch where you turn it off and turn it on. So in our classical computer, if we take our classical computer, our switch, when it is off, it is at zero position. When it is on, it is at one position. So it could be either on or either off. But in quantum computing, the switch could be on and off. That means we are uncertain of the position, and that is why this is called as superposition. A classical computer will have either 0 or 1 as an input. The state when the qubits produces 0 and 1 is called the superposition. Now, this is good in most of the things we see, but it does not actually work similar in the universe. In the nature, things aren't just on or off, but they are uncertain or unpredictable. Every day we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. That's how our universe works. That's how our life works. Not even a supercomputer are able to calculate that uncertainty. So who's going to do that? Like, there needs to be some technology, an advanced computer, an advanced supercomputer which can calculate the uncertainty, which can predict what is going to happen. And this is all because in the past centuries, our physicists have found out that more you go deep into things, the more it gets complicated, the more it'll be weird, the more you'll be confused, and the more you'll start thinking like, how am I going to work with this? Quantum mechanics is a part of quantum computing, which is a solution to all these questions that I have just asked. Because quantum mechanics being a foundation of physics, a foundation of biology, and and a combination of chemistry. So we get everything into quantum computing, which is in the today's world is necessary to know what exactly is happening. Coming back to the topic, how our quantum computer work. As said earlier, quantum computer works with qubits instead of bits. And rather than just on or off, qubits can also be both, either like both on at the same time and both off at the same time, which is called as superposition. Now, to give an example, easy example on a day-to-day basis, take a coin and flip it. It could be either tail or heads. But if you spin it, it might have a chance to land it on head and a chance to landing on tail. So we are uncertain. We are predicting, we are putting some probability. Okay, so it might land on head or it might land on tail. This superposition makes our quantum computer very powerful to work. Without superposition, there won't be anything that could be done in anything in quantum computing. If to give another example about a maze, or keep it more simple, let's consider a lot of you might be into development field, so you might know, like, if you take an program to find the largest number out of a set of 10 numbers, our classical computer would do that iteration by iteration, and they will have 10 iterations. But with quantum computer, this will check all in once. So instead of having 10 iterations, we will have just one iteration. It will scan through all the numbers and get your answer. That is the largest number. What does this mean? Like, how really does it make a difference? Because it saves time, and the computation task that would take billion of years to do, this would do within minutes, which is a great thing now. Like, nobody wants to do the computation task taking billion of years. So after this, I'll show you an video which gives an example of Schrodinger's cat, and it has a very good meaning in the superposition thing, and it will make thing more clear for you. But before that, let me tell you a bit about quantum entanglement. When two particles are linked together, even when they are physically separated, is called an entanglement. Now, if we take an example of the same flipping coin, but at this time we flip two coins, both results are independent of each other. In entanglement, two particles are linked together even if they are physically separated, which means if one comes as head, the other one will also be coming as head. Now, let's see a short video about quantum computing and superposition.
As computers continually become more complex, physical limitations are beginning to inhibit increases in data speeds. And so, quantum computers are being developed with an alternative approach to how computers are physically designed. But how do quantum computers work? Well, there are two core concepts needed to understand quantum computers. First, superposition. While conventional computers use bits to represent a 0 or a 1, in quantum computing, qubits are used, which can represent any range between 0 and 1. This ability to exist in multiple states at once is known as superposition, and it enables exponentially more information to be stored. The second important concept is entanglement. This property of quantum mechanics enables qubits to be linked regardless of distance. This means that by measuring just one qubit, you can deduce the properties of its partner. Together, superposition and entanglement allow quantum gates to generate a series of zeros and ones simultaneously, increasing processing speeds and calculation capabilities.
Now, as I mentioned before about Schrodinger's cat regarding our superposition example, this is the next video on the same.
This wouldn't be a YouTube channel without a cat video. So without further ado, we present Schrodinger's cat. I'm sure you've heard some version of this famous thought experiment. You put a cat in a bunker with some unstable gunpowder that has a 50% chance of blowing up in the next minute and a 50% chance of doing nothing. The gunpowder is Einstein's version. Schrodinger preferred poisonous gas. But whatever. So until we look in the bunker, we don't know whether the cat is dead or alive. And when we do look, it is either dead or alive. So if we repeat the experiment enough times with enough cats and bunkers and gunpowder, we'll see that half the time, Kitty survives, and half the time, Kitty goes bye-bye. The quantum mechanical interpretation is that before we look, the cat is in a superposition. It's both dead and alive. And our act of looking forces nature's decision. So our curiosity kills the cat. But what about the cat's perspective? Well, the cat either sees the gunpowder explode or not. So inside the bunker, we actually have these two possibilities. The powder explodes and the cat sees it explode, or the powder doesn't explode and the cat doesn't see it explode. There's no option, the powder explodes and the cat doesn't see it explode. So the cat's reality becomes entangled with the outcome of the experiment. And it's our observation of the experiment that forces nature to collapse to one option or the other. But we're like the cat too. Either the cat dies and we see it dead, or the cat lives and we see it alive. So who's observing us to force nature to collapse to one reality? Or do both possibilities happen in parallel within a larger multiverse? This collapsing to one reality problem is one of the biggest unanswered questions in quantum physics. So for Kitty's sake, can I has answer, please?
Um, I hope you have seen this video, and probably most of you have understand it and most of you have partially understand it. And I know it's a lot to take at this time for those who have heard this topic for the first time, but believe me, this is the right time to know about quantum computing, and it's the right time to learn quantum who are very much interested into this area. And it's the right time to know about our universe into deep. Let's talk a bit more about quantum artificial intelligence. At this point, quantum artificial intelligence is more of into the research phase rather than an implementation phase. Scientists are now doing a lot of research in how do we, bring quantum into artificial intelligence, or into robotics and different stuffs. So what does it say? It's an interdisciplinary field that focuses on building quantum algorithms for improving computational tasks with artificial intelligence. What actually is quantum AI is, well, it is a field that focuses on, as said, building quantum algorithms to improve computation tasks, including the subfield that is ML. Nobody goes, the ML doesn't goes without artificial intelligence. If you remember before, our two phenomena of quantum computing, that is superposition and entanglement, are used powerful, which allow quantum computing to perform computational tasks million times better than a classical computer. Before, when I gave an example of computers can do a lot, quantum computing can work a lot more better than our classical computer. So this is where it comes. Now, superposition is very powerful to do our quantum calculations. Now, these algorithms are very powerful rather than having our AI algorithms itself. So imagine if quantum and AI gets together, there are so many things that could be achieved in this world. Now, all of you know about natural languaging processes, our robotics, computer vision. So these are all part of AI and machine learning, but quantum computing could also be a part of this, and it could solely and independently be able to do every calculation that an AI does. There are a few things that everyone should know about quantum computing. So quantum computing has defied logic now. Atoms were developed first in the 20th century, which turned out that atoms do not adhere to the traditional rules of physics. Quantum particles move backwards and forward at the same time and exist two places at once, or even teleport. Now, teleportation is a very interesting topic which we will cover in the later slides, but it's more deep into the quantum world. It is more deep into the quantum universe, and we will initially start learning about it, but at this point I'll just brief you about the teleportation. Coming back to our topic, according to a survey in 2018, there were 2.5 exabytes of data which is generated every day, and in order to process this data and extract meaningful information, what do we need? We need an advanced and more advanced supercomputer, or an advanced traditional computer, to solve this problem, to extract that amount of data. But quantum computing is something that could do it for us. It plays a major role in extracting that huge amount of data and give meaningful information within a short period of time. There are 15 to 20 things about quantum computing that everyone should know, not only just the technical, but the non-technicals as well, because it's more interesting for our universe at this point. And to name a few, quantum computing can solve problems which are impossible to solve by traditional computers or would take really millions and billions of years. Quantum computing can be used for data security, RSA encryption, and probably make our technology hack proof. Like now we are so prone to hackers that every now and then we see this is hacked, that is hacked. But quantum computing has that ability to stop the hacking and make it hack proof. But at the same time, if you look into it, it is good into hacker's hand as well, because if it can make hack proof, then it could, be used to do a lot of things. Quantum computers needs to be kept in cold temperature now. There are some experiments being running about it, that how quantum computer would react in a hot temperature or a really really hot temperature. But at this point, minus 460-degree Fahrenheit is the temperature that a quantum computer needs. D-Wave are a company based in Vancouver, Canada, which whom I meet, and myself and John, we met them regarding, and their quantum computers are really being used by a lot of people, and they have a huge data center in Vancouver. They, according to their survey, they keep their quantum machines under minus 460-degree Fahrenheit, and which is fairly feasible at this point. Now, some of you might remember when IBM's computer Deep Blue defeated the chess champion Gary Kasparov in 1997. It was able to gain competitive advantage because it examined 200 million possible moves each second. 200 million possible moves. If us laymen, we are playing chess, how many possible moves we could think? Probably 10, probably 15, probably 5, probably 1. But a quantum machine would be able to calculate 1 trillion moves per second, which is wow. Like, who even can think 1 trillion moves per second? It's unbelievable at this point. I never knew that there are actually 1 trillion moves. There could be 1 trillion moves in a chess as well. But yeah, as I said, there are so many companies now who are working on quantum technology. One of the biggest achievement for Google was quantum supremacy. Now, what is quantum supremacy? A classical computer might take 10,000 years time to solve a complex computational task, or maybe random sampling calculations. Google used 54 qubits quantum machine, and Google Sycamore device took 3 minutes 20 seconds to solve that quantum supremacy, to solve that quantum problem, which is called as quantum supremacy. Now, can you see the difference between 10,000 years time and 3 minutes 20 seconds? How fast? Now you can imagine how fast is a quantum computer at this age, at this era, and there is still more to go. It's just the beginning. There is a short news from Brasilia that speaks about Google quantum supremacy.
Imagine a machine that only needs 200 seconds, just over 3 minutes, to solve a problem that would take the world's second most powerful computer 10,000 years to figure out. While Google claims it's designed such a thing, the tech giant said on Wednesday that it's achieved a breakthrough in computer research called quantum supremacy. While traditional computing relies on bits or ones and zeros, quantum computing uses quantum bits or qubits, can be both 1 and 0 at the same time. However, Google's main quantum computer rival IBM is questioning Google's claims, saying a regular supercomputer with additional disk storage could solve such problems within 2.5 days with greater accuracy. Imagine.
Now, with Google is not just the only company who is doing a lot in quantum, but also Volkswagen and Microsoft. What Volkswagen is using quantum technology is for route optimization. So we all know Volkswagen; they are one of the biggest and car industry, and they really needed to have something that optimizes their traffic and the traffic. Population outside in the traffic, but quantum computing was able to do it, and this was done in Lisbon. Similarly, with Microsoft, at this point, Google is more ahead of the inventions regarding all the technology in quantum, but Microsoft is no behind. They have now added quantum computing in their Azure platform. So at this point, you can create your own quantum technology, you can create your own quantum application on the cloud. So basically they have brought your quantum technology on the cloud, which is more beneficial for their partners and the people who are using Azure cloud and the people who are interested in quantum computing. um, this is something very interesting, parallel universe. The name doesn't actually defines it at all, but what actually is parallel universe or a multiverse? But when you see multiverse, it could say a lot of things. The multiverse is a theory in which not just one universe, but there are so many universes inside it, and these distinct universes have their different theories, which is called as parallel universe. A very good example, which was a very hot topic last year, was the man from Torrid 1954 in 1954. Now, this story is, for some it would be like a hoax. People do not believe it, but this actually happened, and we still have no proof of how did it happen. So to name it, the man of Torrid came to Tokyo International Airport in 1954. Now, this is a perfect example for parallel universe, which might give you a brief idea about how does it work. So in 1954, the man from Torrid, we don't know like how Torrid is pronounced. It could be Taurid, Torrid, or Tirad. Nobody knows because this country does not exist. But this man came to Tokyo and he went to the airport. He asked the immigration officer regarding passage. The immigration officer asked for his passport, and in his passport it was written Torrid as a citizen. But where is Torrid? Like nobody knew Torrid exists. We don't know if this is a country. They ask him like, where is this country? And he's like, this country is in existence since thousands of years. And can you imagine, thousands of years, and we still don't know where Torrid is? So people were actually nervous about it. The immigration officers got really nervous, and they started to investigate that Torrid actually doesn't exist anywhere. They asked his documentation if he had any. So the man gave him his license. To their surprise, the license had also said that he's from Torrid. Now this got a little bit creepy and scary for them, and what they did was they asked the man from Torrid, to stay in a hotel for a day so that they could investigate and find out what is really going on before they let him pass. Sorry. Later in the morning, so that man already had bodyguard outside his hotel, and he was really on 30th floor or something, or 25th floor or something, where he couldn't jump off. But next morning, that man was not there in his room. He was vanished somehow, and to everybody wonders, they couldn't find him anywhere because the bodyguard was outside. He couldn't jump out of the window. Then where the hell did he go? To the surprise, the documents that he had given to the immigration officer were all vanished somehow. They couldn't find his license, they couldn't find the documents, they couldn't find the passport at all. So where did he go? To be very honest, people still say that he came from a parallel universe where there is a different Earth as us, where there's a different planet like us, and somehow he vanished. So this was a lot in news before, which is a great example about parallel universe that could had happened. And there are certain level of parallel universe which do exist. like our first level. Now, the level one of parallel universe says that the space is so big that the rules of probability imply that surely somewhere else out there are other planets exactly like Earth. In fact, our infinite universe would have infinitely many planets on some of them. The event that play out would be virtually identical to those on own planet. Now, level two is more of a complicated. So when we talk about the man of Torrid, when asked him like where is his country, they brought a map for him and asked him to show where the country is. And he pointed out one of the country named Andorra, which is between France and Spain. And Andorra is an existing place. Andorra is an existing name, but there was no mention of Torrid. Level two is more of like that complicated area where it will be a lot to grasp at this point. But if we directly jump to level three, it is a consequences of the many worlds, like interpretation from quantum physics, in which every single quantum possibility will have one quantum wave function, which becomes a real possibility in some reality. Now, when an average people, we think about parallel universe, it's probably the level three kind of parallel universe we are talking about. Level four parallel universe is the strangest place of all, which is imaginary probably, and which actually follows the mathematical of different laws of nature than our universe. In short, any universe that is mathematically possible has equal possibility of actually existing. But it's all in theory. There is no proof. There is no evidence as of now. Um, these are some proven facts that people have noticed, and people have done it without even before even quantum computing existed, before even people were able to work with quantum technology. um, Quantum computation is nothing less than a distinctly new way of harnessing nature. So David touched the fabric of reality. He thinks that quantum computing would be something that could be indirectly be working with the multiverse, and soon there will be a way that all our computation tasks would be perfectly collaborated with between our parallel universe. So from our universe to the parallel universe, we'll be able to do that task. Now, there is um, saying from Bhagavad Gita. Many of you must be thinking why all of a sudden we are talking about Bhagavad Gita, and maybe this woman has gone crazy talking too much. But to be very honest, there is some reality to this. There are now in Bhagavad Gita, if I know, even I haven't read Bhagavad Gita, but what it says is not really crazy. It wasn't crazy at that time. This is something, this has to do something with our universe. This had to do something with our parallel universe. What does this has to do with quantum computing? What does this Bhagavad Gita line, Bhagavad Puran line actually has to do with quantum computing? But quantum computing is something that messes with our mind in our day-to-day lives. Among many of the theories, a paradox is present is that a particle and it can exist in more than one place at a time. So if we take an example of a human being rather than a particle, if today, right now, at this moment, at this second, I am delivering this quantum computing lecture to you all, but in the parallel universe, I might be sleeping probably. I might be doing something else, or I might be doing, going around and painting the town red or something. But that level does exist. That level, this has a belief that it exists. Now, wouldn't that be great if I am present in two places at one time? I am delivering this lecture and I have to do something else as well. So I am doing that too. Wouldn't that be great for all of us to be present in two places at one time? But if the particle can be in more than one place at the same time, or if I can be at two places at the same time, where is the other place? Where am I? Like where the second me is in the other place? And where did I go? Where did the particle go? The answer is parallel universe. Now, this is all in theory, as I said before, but it does not mean that parallel universe does not exist. People still believe that parallel universe is there. We still talk about the man from Torrid. We still talk about where did he go. But yeah, for those who really would like to know about the man from Torrid and hear the story, which is very interesting, could read the book, The Directory of Possibilities by Colin Wilson and John Grant. So you'll get questions to your answer probably in a much more similar way. Now, as I was talking before about quantum teleportation, this is really one of a very interesting topic. Wouldn't it be great if you can teleportate yourself rather than just walking and walking 10,000 miles? How would you feel if you can just within a click of your fingers you are teleported to some other dimension or some other place or some other area? So as of today, the possibility of human teleportation is very low. Like there is no technology which can do that. But scientists were able to do this, that scientists were able to teleport it, photons, electrons, and even calcium atoms successfully. So from Earth to space, we can now teleport photons. That's how the teleportation works. So our photons and electrons can easily be teleported from one place to another. To understand quantum teleportation, it is very important to understand what is quantum entanglement, which we had previously covered it. Now, there are three types of possible teleportation, which is one is through a wormhole, which is directly moving your body through a wormhole and getting yourself into another position. The second is the Star Trek position, where your body is disassembled, where the particles of your body are being beamed somewhere else and reassembled the same way. And the third way is the philosophy problem, where your body is scanned and all the information is transmitted somewhere else and being used to build a new body, which we are talking about the last mankind. Now, to do this, one body needs to die and the another body needs to survive. Now, there is a short video which could explain a bit more, and this uses Schrodinger's cat to teleport.
There are basically three kinds of teleportation. The kind where the thing you want to teleport is somehow instantly moved from one location to another, perhaps by a loophole in the fabric of space-time, or magic, or something. The kind where you disassemble the object and send the pieces to the faraway location to be reassembled. And the kind where you scan the object in one place and just transmit the instructions for how to reassemble it somewhere else using different molecules and atoms. This last kind of teleportation kind of sounds like cloning, since couldn't you just scan the object and send instructions to reassemble a copy somewhere else without destroying the original? But no, quantum mechanics prohibits exact copying of arbitrary objects, so any method of teleportation governed by the physics in our universe will somehow alter or destroy the original object. Which is kinda nice, because it bypasses those soul-searching, paradox-inducing questions about which is the real you, the teleported you or the stuff that was left behind. No cloning implies the teleported one is unequivocally the real one. This isn't just science fiction. Well, human teleportation is, but physicists have successfully used this method to teleport photons of light, electrons, even calcium atoms. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how quantum teleportation works in the hopes of giving you a clearer picture of what it can do and what it can't. Physicists usually teleport small quantum things in a superposition of several states, like an electron that's...
To understand more into this deep, there needs to have a very deep knowledge regarding the quantum technology, but this point would be really stupid of me to talk about. So I would leave it there and probably leave it to you, whoever has any questions regarding this, and they could look according to their convenience and work on this. So for some of you, this might be boring. I see somebody's raising her hand, Manisha. But Manisha, give me 1 minute and I'll just wrap it up and we can go for question and answers. So for some of you, this might be boring, for some fascinating, and for some, they might be into an imaginary world, like where are we talking about and what are we talking about? But believe it or not, it exists somewhere and it is still around us. It's still in this universe. quantum physics gets spookier and scarier when you get deeper into it. Not just me, but all the scientists and physicists have agreed to it that the more you dive into the quantum physics, quantum mechanics, it gets scarier and it gets weirder that we have never imagined. Quantum computing could change the world. It could transform medicines. For an example, for our COVID-19, we haven't seen any vaccine coming up yet, but quantum computing is able to develop vaccines for the diseases, which is really life taking, and people are still working on it. It has that capability. It could break encryption and revolutionize communication and artificial intelligence. Now, China has invested billions into quantum computing, and right now, India is also working on the quantum technology. There has been millions which has been financed in India regarding quantum. Companies like IBM, Microsoft, and Google are racing to build reliable quantum computers. So I hope you're all ready for the quantum computing revolution now. And by now, in this lecture, you probably have had an idea, a slight idea, maybe in like beginners, like how quantum computing works and how important today is quantum computing. And I hope you all enjoyed the sessions and learned something new today. I know it's a little bit boring, but fascinating at the same time as well. So thank you for listening, everybody. And now we'll just go to question and answers.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeevantika ma'am. It was a very nice session. I request to all the participants, if you're having any questions or doubts in your mind, so chat box is open to all of you. You have to put your question on the chat box. Madam, please take a review of your news, please.
Yeah, thank you. So how can we, I have questions. So, ma'am, can we create wormholes by using quantum computing? Well, that's a very deep, knowledgeable questions regarding wormholes. But to be very honest, nobody is really that aware about wormholes and creating quantum computing. But at the same time, when I was talking about teleportation, so definitely there is something with quantum technology. If we are teleporting our photons, then definitely it could be through a wormhole or it could be through, as I mentioned, the teleportation. But when you go, and I really suggest you, Soham, to check the Schrodinger's cat teleportation video, which I just showed it previously. Since it was a very big video, I was not able to show it, but do go and check it and you'll have more idea regarding wormholes teleportation. And yes, quantum computing is able to do so what you have just asked. So I strongly recommend, if you are that much interested, please go and look at that video, which would give, it's a 14-minute video and it will help you a lot with all the things. So I hope I cleared your query, Soham. Thanks. Rahul asked, how can we relate quantum computing and AI? So as I mentioned, quantum computing can solve a lot of problems that an AI algorithms could possibly won't be able to do. But when we relate quantum computing and AI, it's a huge and massive area. It's a huge and massive, it becomes a massive technology. But it's still in the research and people are still working on how do we do it. But it's certainly possible that we will be able to relate quantum computing and AI in terms of robotics, in terms of natural languaging processes, in terms of communication. So there are so many theories about the AI algorithms and the quantum algorithms, and they both does not work the same way. But people are trying to figure out how can we actually make it work in the same way, and which is possible. So Hum asks, is there any relation between QC and astrophysics? Yeah, so dark series, yeah, that is actually, and I would suggest if you can watch the OA, which is more into deep quantum. So when you talk about QC and astrophysics, it is somewhat related. When we talk about when we talk about our universe, when we talk about the quantum universe. Now, a lot of you might have heard astral projection, which is a teleportation technique in our ancient times. So our ancient gods and ancient gurus were able to astral project themselves, but not using the last technique which I said, where you have to destroy your first body in order to teleportate yourself into the other dimension. So astral projection is something where you leave your body and just, dive into the other universe. So the movie which I suggested, the OA, that's more of what you have just asked. So it's regarding quantum jump. And currently there is no evidence how many dimensions we have, but we just know the four: the x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, and our time is one of our dimension right now. So but it is said there are more than 20 dimensions, and jumping quantum dimensions, that is a theory. Like human jumping is a theory, but if you, Soham, if you'll watch the movie, the series on Netflix, the OA, you'll have more idea how it's working. um Poonam, ma'am, could you share the full videos with us? You have just presented. Yes, I'll just add the link in the chat, and I'll share it. Or maybe what I can do is I can share with Arpit sir if that is feasible, so that you guys are able to get the video link. But I'll share it in the chat as well, so you can see it and go through it. But the videos I've taken from YouTube, and you can actually go to YouTube and see the videos, whatever I have shown. Rahul asks, good afternoon, ma'am. I am physics student. Can I do a course in? Oh, definitely. I doubt at this point there is any much more expertise into the quantum AI, but definitely you can start your research, because physics, as I mentioned, physics get weirder and weirder the moment you go. But if you have a physics background, I think you're the perfect candidate to get into quantum physics, quantum mechanics. If you want to make a career in this, how should go for that, and what should be done? So at this point, I would suggest diving into the career area. I'll be advising, because you need to make your background strong. There are a lot of fields in quantum AI. I think your AI and ML career would lead you into quantum career. At this point, I think it is very important for you to get hands-on with quantum rather than making a career at this point. So whatever technology is available, whatever inventions there are so many research papers online that you'll find regarding the inventions that were made before even the quantum was known to this humankind, was known to this human century. So I would suggest go and read those papers and see as many videos as you can, get hands-on with the universe, get hands-on with the parallel universe, and just then see like where you are leading in terms of career. And definitely you can have a career later on. Ravi Teja, could you please tell your LinkedIn ID? It can be useful for us. Yes, I will definitely, Ravi, share my LinkedIn ID. And please feel free to contact me, send me an email or LinkedIn if you want to know more about overseas education. How much is the use of MATLAB in this field? Okay, Pratik, to be very honest, I have never seen MATLAB being used into quantum computing, but as I said before, if you dig a bit more about using MATLAB, there is no technology that we cannot use with quantum. And to the people who are very much interested into it, who are very much interested into coding, I would suggest go for Python first. Get your hands on Python so that you understand the quantum language, so that you understand your quantum coding language, and you can create your own applications. There is a movie called Jumpers. It's from Prasad. There's a movie called Jumpers, in that it's shown that after people jump, they leave a trace behind which could be used to track them. What could cause that trace to be left and not cleared right away? Wow, that's a very good question. But yeah, um, honestly, there is a lot to think that what could cause that trace to be left behind. So if you have seen the video carefully, the last video about Schrodinger's cat that I have shown, uh, that Schrodinger's cat really was working with superposition. And when Schrodinger's was experimenting with his cat by putting a radioactive material in it, and before opening it, he was thinking the probability was it could die or it could, still stand there. So there is no answer to this as of now. There are no evidences that if a person is jumping, and to be very honest, quantum jump is something which is not really into the technology, which doesn't really exist in this world. It's all in theory. But if you talk about theory, then what could cause the trace to be left behind and not cleared away? That's unknown. It's uncertain. And in the coming future, if this really takes a boom in the coming future, if there is something that we find out, then definitely the mechanics, the physics could answer all this. And it everything to quantum computing is based on our physics, biology, chemistry, mechanics, and everything. So whatever we are learning right now, this the whole concept, even the basics of chemistry, even the basics of biology is all used into the quantum technology at this point. So if you are doing your studies properly right away at this point, then I think you're no far away from getting into the quantum world. So I would suggest, and these movies are just an influencers, so at some points that is all theory. This is not something really evidented or really being into existence, but at the same point it is very very informative to watch such movies because they are based on the actual theories and not just hoax. So no, that's a very good movie. And as I suggested to Soham, you also watch the OA, which gives a lot of information about the same area, and it would be really amazing to know what is actually happening in the quantum jump and what is the extra dimension. If we prove mathematically, it may exist actually. So we find trace for that and can prove. Yes, definitely. Like so the level 4 of parallel universe, the level 4, as I was telling, it is one of the strangest place. So nobody has been to parallel universe. And sometime what quantum jump actually is that we always do in our day-to-day life. There has been a meditation area where quantum jumping takes a very important role. So how to quantum jump in your day-to-day life, you can do that right now. So I am sitting here and thinking a lot of questions. How am I gonna, move ahead? How am I gonna do this thing today? I have so many negative thoughts in my mind, and I just want to jump from it. I just want to leave that behind, and I just don't want any traces. Probably, I don't want any traces to leave my negative thoughts behind. So how do I do that? Now, there are so many ways to meditate, to leave your work, to find another way, to get into another activity or something like that. And then you forget what was your negative thoughts. So this is also a quantum jump. If you talk in a layman term, and if you talk about day-to-day life, this is also a quantum jump. So if there are so many things that has fundamentally different mathematical laws of nature, and for that you really need to know the law of nature. For that you really need to know how a universe works. So as said before, any universe that is mathematically possible has equal possibility of actually existing, which is, again, informative. So yeah, mathematically if proven, mathematically if known, there is definitely a way to find that out. I hope that was clear, Soham. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I think the questions are over, ma'am.
Yeah,
I think,
so
yeah, there are no remaining questions.
okay, so thank you all. It was a pleasure speaking with all of you. And I'll just share my LinkedIn in the chat so that you have access to it.
So thank you so much, ma'am. The time and knowledge you have shared with us today.
No
Really, the
problem. It was
session
a
was
pleasure.
too much informative, and you have explained and elaborated the concept of quantum computing in a very music manner. It is so many interesting videos you have shown for understanding. Thank you once again, ma'am. Really, today I am feeling very much proud. One of our students, she belongs to Nagpur University, making her career in Ireland and having her own industry setup running there. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
madam. We required your same cooperation in future also. Thank you
Definitely,
so
definitely.
much. Yeah,
No
thank you so
problem.
much.
Thank you so much for inviting me,
Yeah,
NIT Institute, and thank you, Arpit sir, again for believing in me always since the very beginning. And thank you everybody for joining it. So I have shared my LinkedIn profile to you guys, and
exactly. Yeah.
please feel free to ask anything if you want.
Hello.
So, hello, Johnson. My voice is audible to you.
Yes.
Okay, sure. All right. Yeah. Okay, now it's an honor to have with us another eminent and dynamic keynote speaker, Mr. John Patrick Shaw, CEO and founder of Navicon.com, Dublin, Ireland. I heartily welcome you, sir. Mr.
Thank you.
Shaw, sir, currently works as an CEO and founder of Navicon.com, and it is based at Navicon.com global headquarters in Dublin, Ireland. John Sir co-founded the company in July 2019 to lead the move to digitizations, a fellow of Irish Computer Society and fellow of Engineers Ireland. He is registered European professional engineer with 15 plus years of experience in finance, energy, pharma, and logistics sector. Sir holds an MBA in Technology Management and bachelor's degree in Electronics Engineering from University College Dublin. He is a senior member of IEEE. He joined Primeline in Feb 2019 as a CIO. Prior to this, he was with the Planet Payment, where he was hired to lead a major transformation, having previously held technology leadership role with a mainstream Accenture and General Electrics. Really, sir, your biography is very much enlightened us. With this, I would like to request Shaw sir to start his session on quantum application in digital wellness. Sir, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to try and share my screen. There, here we go. Into- Okay, so you should be able to see my slide. So I'm going to speak about digital wellness, and at the end of my talk, um, what I'd like to leave you with is four thoughts. Um, so we're establishing a digital wellness innovation institute to address emerging threats and emerging opportunities in healthcare. In the current wellness ecosystem, data and decision making are disjointed. We also want to create a clear citizens' health charter with ambitious targets. And finally, we're creating a capability maturity framework, a CMF, for digital wellness to help accelerate the realization of improvements. So, to begin, COVID has changed our world. Health has become our primary concern, the primary concern of our time. So we think that today is the 20th of September 2020. It's not. Today is the 20th of September 2025. We have been pushed 5 years into the future because of COVID. The majority of people in the world are now working from home. Their customers are at home, their suppliers are at home, they're at home. Only work that cannot be done at home is done outside the home. Digitization has accelerated. Think of Zoom think of WhatsApp, think of all the tools we've already been using, but look at how we're using them much more now. But in businesses and in healthcare, the same thing is happening. Technology that was perhaps experimental or only used in a few places is now very, very widely used. There's a famous quote by an American science fiction writer, William Grover. The future is already here, only it's not evenly distributed. And that is so true. And the third big thing, of course, is wellness first. We are much more now aware of our personal health and the health of our parents and our relatives and our neighbors. The country that spends the most on healthcare in the world is the United States. And the United States is on track now to spend 25% of its GDP on healthcare, a phenomenal amount of money. In the current ecosystem of health, you have many players. You have hospitals, you have governments, you have universities and others, but it's overall it's disjointed. So nobody on this call can say that their lifetime's health records are in one place, easily accessible. So your childhood vaccination certificates, any visit you've ever had to the dentist or elsewhere, all that data is in different places, and any pattern that might be in that data is not available. And we're living at a time when the cost of healthcare is rising, but also the risk associated with our health is rising. So a new framework is needed, a way to encourage better collaboration between commercial organizations and academia and public services, a so-called virtuous helix. So we put the citizen at the center, but all stakeholders represented. So it's not an impossible dream. It's already been done in a different sector. So in the aircraft sector, in the airline sector, Boeing have done this already. So when Boeing set out to design the Dreamliner, the Boeing Dreamliner, which is an amazing aircraft, that was done entirely digitally. There was no mechanical realization of that in the design phase. It was entirely modeled and built electronically before it was put into manufacturing. When it was designed that way, the decision was then taken to manufacture the aircraft using the same principles. So every component that's manufactured is videoed, all the critical dimensions and attributes of that component are stored. And then in service, similarly, so a single flight of a Boeing Dreamliner across the Atlantic generates 120 terabytes of data. And this combined has enormous benefits, but one of the most important benefits is in airline safety. So when you look at the safest airlines in the world, they are not accidentally safe. They are very deliberately safe because they're following a process and a culture which aligns with Boeing's technology. And the worst airlines in the world are not accidentally the worst airlines in the world. Similarly, they are the worst airlines in the world because they don't do that. So it's the application of science. So human healthcare can equally benefit from the application of science. Essentially, airplanes are managed better than people when it comes to health. The health of an airplane is much better than the health of a person. So the technology is already around us. It hasn't been aligned correctly. So if you think of smart watches, which are beginning to arrive everywhere, many smart watches today can measure your pulse, but it's not a medically certified pulse. It's not a medically certified metric. So the big difference is that industry and products will become medically certified. So during COVID, we've seen some amazing changes. For example, in Ireland, before COVID, you couldn't get a medical prescription by email. That wasn't allowed. It had to be a physical piece of paper. Now it's accepted, that email is okay. Another example is what's called telemedicine. So receiving your GP consultation over Zoom. So back in January in the United States, 11% of Americans were getting their GP consultation over Zoom. That's now 50%. It's on its way to 80% by the end of this year. But technologically, what we're talking about is having a compute continuum vision for digital health. So real-time instrumentation, wearables, and AI analysis at the back end. So patterns are identified early. So altogether, this is what's led to our vision of a Digital Wellness Institute. It's where three major forces collide, as already indicated. Now, an important point in all of this is to talk about a health charter. So, you know, airplanes are better managed than people. The lifetime of an airplane, all its life, it's very carefully managed, spare parts, flying hours. So anyone who's familiar with the airline industry will know what I mean. But what's very important to think about is a citizen's health charter. So if you take humanity, each and every person, so each and every person in our vision should have a healthy life until 100. There's no point in living to be 100 years old if you spend 20 years in distress at the end of your life with some horrible medical issues. So we want everyone healthy until they're 100. Why not? You know, the human body can live to be 120. You know, if you look at the Guinness Book of Records, there are many people who get close to 120. But it's quality of life, really, we're talking about here. We want every citizen to be proactively cared for to prevent illness. We want a world in which infectious diseases are very rare. We want a world where heart disease is rare, arthritis, diabetes type 2, Alzheimer's and cancer are rare. A world in which invasive surgery is rare, organ transplant are rare. Rare because they're not needed. Physical injury rare, mental injury rare. That's the world we want. That's the Citizens' Health Charter that we're talking about. And this is the world of 2050. So inevitably, the world of the future is better, but we just want to get there faster. If we then look at that and we say, right, if that's what we want, well, how would we get that? And already the technology exists. So if you look at wanting to be healthy to 100, then you have to think of your health entirely differently. You have to think of your diet and your exercise much differently, your hydration, you know, all of the things that you do. But the technology exists to monitor these things, to monitor your heart, your digestive system, your cognitive system, etc. Which I've already talked about wearables, and I'll talk a bit more about quantum computing shortly, but quantum computing plays a role in all of this, as do so many other things. So my slide deck goes into different levels of detail. So I'll talk a little bit more now in terms of, you know, what is the world of 2050 and what are we trying to get to here? So in the world of 2050, a life cycle approach to health will be taken. So when you are born, your genome is measured, and this will tell the doctors all about your inherent health risk that's genomically based. Not all of the health risks that you faced are based upon your DNA. People have a surprisingly similar DNA everywhere in the world. So people might look different in different parts of the world, but the human race has a very, very, very narrow range of DNA diversity compared to other creatures on the earth. There's all kinds of historical reasons for that. There was around about 70,000 years ago, there was what's called a bottleneck event. So there was a major cataclysm in the world. Maybe it was a volcano, who knows what it was. But as a consequence of that, the vast majority of people were wiped out. And all modern people in the world, every single human being on this planet, comes from a very, very small survivor population from 70,000 years ago. And for those who have Google accessible to you, have a look at that and you'll see more. I can't go into much detail at the time here. So the consequence of that bottleneck event means that we're dangerously narrowly similar to each other, which is why COVID is so dangerous, because a simple thing can kill all people. Where, like, if you look at smallpox or polio, there is nobody in the world who could be immune to that without a vaccine. No one is naturally immune to such horrible things. We have a strategy for building our institute. This is a strategy on a slide concept. So the concept is to state the strategy in a simple way, ensure every citizen has a healthy digital life. And when we say that, we mean the application of digital technology to make your life better. It's nothing to do with watching too many hours of YouTube. It's how do you apply digital to make your life better. We've identified 7 initiatives in our first pass to take us from a current position where healthcare is reactive, costs are rising, there's gaps in technology, we've unclear data ownership and data protection, we have a reactive technology ecosystem, and we've an undefined maturity framework. We don't have a maturity framework in the technology applied in healthcare, and that's what we want to change. So we've identified a 5-year roadmap. We also have a governance model. I'm working with Professor Martin Curley. He is the head of digital innovation for the Irish medical system. So the Irish State's health board, if you like. He has a very senior role there. Prior to working for the Irish health system, Professor Martin Curley was head of innovation for Intel globally. Very impressive guy. We've also got an outline budget, and we also have a location. So you'll all get a copy of the slide deck after this. I'm deliberately not dwelling on certain aspects given the limited time. So we have a location for our innovation center. So you say, well, why would you do this in Ireland? What's so special about Ireland? Well, Ireland is the only English-speaking country in the European Union, and Ireland is home to all of the world's global biopharma manufacturing companies and pharmaceutical manufacturing companies and medical devices manufacturing companies. Now, most of those companies are American, and they have chosen Ireland as the gateway to Europe. So the European Union has about 550 million citizens. Ireland is a very small country with about 5 million. But because we're a member of the European Union and because we're English speaking, we are a very attractive location for international organizations. One of the challenges with other parts of Europe is that they're speaking a local language which nobody will understand anywhere else in the world. Danish, Norwegian, Portuguese, Latvian, Bulgarian. Nobody can speak those languages outside their home country, apart from the few enthusiasts, maybe at universities, who've studied those languages. So Ireland is continuing to expand in this field. A second reason is that Ireland is also home to all of the major tech companies. They're all here. So if you look at, for example, Microsoft's headquarters for Europe, Middle East, and Africa is in Dublin. There's the sales office, the technical support, but also original software development is happening in Ireland. And also Microsoft's largest data center in Europe is in Ireland, their large Azure data center. Now that phenomenon, that's true for Google, Amazon, Apple, Oracle, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, the list goes on and on. Twitter, LinkedIn, even TikTok, the Chinese company, has recently decided to build their European data center in Ireland. So Ireland continues to attract from all over the world. And then we have a very strong ecosystem model to encourage organizations to collaborate. So Ireland, it's a good location. And as I said earlier, we have a location for our innovation hub as a consequence. So if we talk about health, then let's talk about that. Now, a very interesting company called iCarbonX. What they do is they will take a blood sample from you, and they will look at your DNA, and from that they will say, right, your particular while all human DNA is very, very, very similar, there are slight differences. For example, some people cannot digest milk; they are lactose intolerant. Some people cannot digest wheat; they're gluten intolerant. And there's other examples of that. So you need to know about this, or you could have a horrible life, eating the wrong food. So the idea here would be that someone with your exact genome who's 20 years older than you, it would be good for you to know what health are they in. Are they in good health or are they in bad health? And then based on that, you can make decisions. You can continue to eat what you shouldn't eat, and face the consequences, or you could say, wait a second, it's a cautionary tale. I don't want to end up in trouble. So there's a huge business in mapping genomes for people, but also a huge business in the advice that follows from that. So I've already touched on the fact that we're moving into a world where a person's health will be monitored in real time and then managed over your full lifespan. So it's a world in which you will have all your parameters measured, your blood pressure, your body temperature, and other things. And then patterns are identified. So globally, what are the patterns? And then specifically to people of a certain genome, what is their unique risk? So the patterns to improve healthcare. Remember, the whole point here is that everyone lives to be 100 and healthy. Now, if we go back and then look at, well, where are we today? Well, today in the world, if we look at a map of recent times. So in 1800, life expectancy around the world was 29 years. And this was genocide and theft known as colonialism. So many European powers, the British, for example, went around the world robbing and stealing and killing in vast numbers. And the world's population suffered hugely, and average life expectancy collapsed to 29 years. By 1950, that era of colonialism was coming to an end, but the world was still in pain from that. If you think of India, in 1947, when India got independence, life expectancy was 27 years. So the British had stolen everything, and you know, the country was in terrible poverty, 90% illiteracy, a terrible time. And of course, everything that's been achieved since then has been achieved by India alone. The space program, the nuclear weapons program, the nuclear power program. And last October, India's economy eclipsed the UK and France, and India became the 5th largest economy in the world. And all of that was achieved only by people from India. India got no help from anyone. So it's a tribute to the determination and the optimism of the people who fought for independence and got it in 1947. But life expectancy today in the world is on average 71 years. And this is all down to advances in medical science, in a greater understanding of hygiene, certainly in Europe, and you know, an appreciation for, well, you know, health is a priority. But if you look in the world today, well, what kills people today? What are the biggest causes of death in the world today? And the biggest cause of death is really two things: cheese and tobacco. They're the two things that kill most people in the world, strangely. Stroke from eating cheese, and then respiratory issues from tobacco. These would be the big causes of death in the world. If we look then at the statistics on healthcare in the world, what we have is this is a chart showing how much food a person is eating per day. So if you look at the United States on this chart, in 1960 it was a healthy diet, but today the Americans are simply eating too much, and they're eating too much cheese. Not that I have anything against cheese, but there is a health issue. Cheese comes with a health warning. So when you look at how the world has changed overall in its diet, it has led to a rise in colon cancer, Alzheimer's disease, inflammatory heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory diseases. So respiratory disease is primarily caused by tobacco, but the others are telling a story that the world's health, the biggest contributor to your health is your diet, without question. Now, if you get very sick, absolutely, you can be treated. There are medicines, there's intervention, but you could equally argue prevention is better than cure. It's better to arrive at 80 years old healthy than to arrive at 80 years old with heart disease, diabetes type 2, colon cancer, arthritis, and Alzheimer's. It's, you know, but it's entirely your choice. You can you know, we all have that choice, but we do owe it to each other to alert each other to the facts. You know, as someone once said, anyone is entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And then if we look at, you know, where are we today? So a child born today, for a child born today in the world, they can expect to live quite a long life. So a child born in Japan today can expect to live to be 95 or older. This is incredible. A child born today in India can expect to live to be at least 85, you know, between 80 and 85. So this is a big leap in 100 years. You know, if you compare 1950 to 2050, you know, look at the change. So people, or indeed 1920 to 2020. So look at the change in the world. So this is what's also happened in the world is we've now passed a point very recently where there are now more people over 65 in the world than under the age of 5. And in the future, the biggest cause of death will be drug-resistant viruses and drug-resistant bacteria. So if we talk about open innovation for a moment. So an example of an open innovation project was at my old University College Dublin, led by Dr. Sean Ennis. So Europe's largest genome bank is at my old University College Dublin. So there are 500,000 people have had their DNA measured. Now, on its own, that's useful to have that. But where it's very useful is if you track each person's life to look for the pattern. So what is the pattern between your unique personal DNA and your life's health? So tracking that over a long period of time is key. But when we talk about open innovation, we're talking about something very particular indeed. So Professor Martin Curley, who I mentioned, he has written a book called Open Innovation 2.0, and this is all about encouraging organizations who would not normally help each other to start helping each other. So you get a network, you get a virtuous helix, as Martin Curley has called it. So there's a whole new way of thinking about how do businesses and universities and governments interact with each other for a better world. That's what it's about. It's also about moving away from just looking at symptoms to looking at root causes. We have data in pockets, as I mentioned at the start. You know, none of us can put our hands on all our medical record, our own personal medical records, which is terrible. But if that was your car, if you have a modern car has a lot of sensors on it, in real time it tells you so much, but yet we can't do that for a person, despite the reality of the cost. So just to look at this chart, in the United States, sorry, now just trying to zoom in. Here we go. In the United States, if you were to compare wages and healthcare cost between 1960 and 50 years later, 2010, wages rose by 16% in that time, but healthcare rose by over 800%. And most of that cost is when a person gets really old, as you can see on this chart. So when a person, when an American is 80 years old, they're on this red graph here. The cost is enormous compared to the 4 other countries in the chart. So costs rise as you get older, but in America, off the charts. And America's spend on healthcare overall then is enormous. And in fact, if you compare it to India, the Americans are spending $10,500 each on healthcare. And they are probably the most unhealthy country in the world. You know, India is way healthier and only spends $200 per person. So you could argue diet is the biggest issue here, but there are other things happening as well with the data. When we talk about genome, so your genome is another way of saying your DNA, right? So this is the unique measure of you. So in every cell of your body, there is a copy of your DNA. So it's quite an incredible thing about how life works. But there are other layers then to that DNA when you talk about, proteins and then how things are metabolized with enzymes, etc. So this whole area has not really been studied well, and quantum computing is the technology that will open this up. It's not possible with current modern computers to model the interaction between proteins. It's just not possible. The complexity is too great. Just give me one moment. So what we're looking at is a need to move the medical world from being a digital laggard to being a digital leader. We also need to talk in terms of next practice rather than best practice. So it's not good enough to just say, well, we want the medical system in Ireland to move to the best practice. Well, that's still no good, because the overall world is in the wrong place with this. We need to be thinking about, well, what's next? And there are standards available. I mean, it's not as if we can't borrow ideas, as I've pointed out from Boeing, from the Boeing Dreamliner example. Ideas can be borrowed. But currently, it's possible to do a huge amount of real-time monitoring of your health. It's not just your pulse that can be measured. So much else can be measured about your health. And indeed, within our environment, so much can be measured. And all of that together, when we start getting all that data together, we're then able to do a huge amount of analysis with AI. So by bringing together the data, we can start to look at the correlations, and we can start to figure out patterns and start to manage things. Now, with Ireland, what we talk about, because Ireland has 5 million people, we think of Ireland as a living lab for these ideas. Because we have these companies in Ireland, we're thinking, well, how could we bring it all together, and how could we get essentially a better health story for Ireland? And then can we take that story and can we move it into the world? Can we learn and then share that knowledge? So the ecosystem, one of the things about the ecosystem is to talk about what we have in UCD, Dr. Sean Ennis, who I mentioned. So his vision is to create a virtual human. So the idea is, in real time and over a long period of time, that each of us has a digital twin. So there's each of us walking around, but somewhere on the cloud, on a cloud computing platform, there's a model of us and also a model of society, and we can spot risks much earlier, and our health becomes much better. So another example of a disruptor, BGI Genomics. I mean, this company is using a huge amount of AI in their efforts. They are a company that operate now in 66 countries around the world, but they give person-specific advice. So if you work with them and they measure your DNA, they'll tell you a huge amount of diet. It'll always be about diet when it's health. They'll tell you what you shouldn't eat. But they're also doing a huge amount of work on drug discovery. And they're another company that are going to start looking at quantum computing for the next level of their company's development. So quantum computing, where does it fit within healthcare overall? Well, this chart is showing, what are the technologies of now, and what are the technologies of the future. So if you look at the inner ring here, you can see that wellness, gamification, and sensors, they're the things in the current horizon up to the end of this year. So wellness gamification is really about making the software in the healthcare business a little bit more user-friendly. But in the 5 years ahead of us, we're looking at advanced materials, robotic care, augmented reality and virtual reality coming into healthcare, health analytics beginning to really happen, medical tricorder, so we've got real-time metrics on people, printing, 3D printing of medical devices, surveillance tools, precision medicine, and quantum computing will start. So between now and 2025, quantum computing will begin to emerge in healthcare, in particular in vaccine discovery. And we're seeing a huge number of companies operating in the sector already. There are over 800 companies that have set up in the last while in a whole range of different areas around, digital health or digital wellness, in robotics for healthcare, in medical big data, digital medical devices, patient engagement, etc. There's so many, and there are so many companies moving into this field. So just looking at a snapshot here of innovators, these are companies that have been able to attract investors in the United States moving into this field. So talk about quantum computing then in healthcare. So firstly, if you talk about the benefits, what might the benefits be? So if we were successful in bringing in quantum computing into this sector, what can we expect? Well, the first thing is around the virtual human, the idea of the digital twin. There's so many complex interactions in the human body that, in one analysis, it talks about, 6,500 variables within your body that would have to be analyzed to understand what's happening. Faster DNA sequencing. So to measure your DNA, it's a laborious process that would be speeded up. Being able to make better use of the huge amounts of data with quantum computing would improve patient care and lead to better predictive healthcare, faster discovery of new drugs, and better decision support. So these are the main areas. A good example of a company that's doing a lot in this area is Horizon Quantum Computing. Now, Horizon Quantum Computing is based in Singapore. The founder is actually an Irish guy, Dr. Joe Fitzsimons. He works out of the University of Singapore and then set this business up, and it has attracted venture capital funding. So they're talking about approaching the challenge of programming quantum computing differently. So for Horizon Quantum Computing, they're not in the hardware business. They're exclusively in the software business. So what they would talk about is, they would talk about an algorithms bottleneck. So what they're saying is that, look, they got together with the leading researchers and they signed a quantum software manifesto, which highlights the need for investment in software development. So the hardware will come along, but until the software arrives, the hardware is of no use to us. So currently there's a very limited talent pool and there's a lack of necessary tools. They would be the big issues. So what they're talking about doing is saying, okay, what Horizon itself is doing is it's talking about creating a set of software tools. So they talk about, so they have a product which they're developing, which they call Horizon Carbon, and it is the equivalent of MATLAB, but for quantum computing challenges. They're also developing a quantum computing programming language, which would be similar to Python and would plug into Python, which they're calling Horizon Beryllium. And they're also developing an operating system which would be hardware agnostic in the same way that Linux or Unix is hardware agnostic in its pure form, but would have hooks and plugins into specific hardware, and that's what they're calling that Horizon Hydrogen. So they have a big ambition to make quantum computing much more accessible to all of us. From a hardware point of view, there are several companies, building hardware at the moment, including IBM and Intel. Google are doing a huge amount of research, and more recently Amazon. And then there are other smaller players such as D-Wave making hardware. So when quantum computing comes into healthcare, it will start by looking at chemistry problems. So when you look at chemistry, at one level, it's quite simple what we're doing with, when you think of chemistry, how do you get hydrogen and oxygen to react and form water? Okay, that's an obvious one. But when you get into more and more complicated chemical reactions, modeling those reactions with conventional computing it's just not possible. it's beyond what a regular computer can do in a reasonable amount of time. So with small first generation quantum computers up to 200 qubits, chemistry will be the focus. As the machines become more and more powerful, the problems that they can take on become more and more advanced. So optimization problems, machine learning problems would be the next big wave of focus, followed by material science, which again is, when you look at complex material interactions, very, very difficult to model with conventional computing. But when you get into level 5 on this, you get into the world of what you think of as unknown problems. Now, the analogy here is the discovery of electricity. So 100 years ago, or 120 years ago, more accurately, 120 years ago, electricity in Europe and America would have arrived in people's homes, and the first generation of applications looked like the previous application. So in most people's homes, they had a stove for heating using wood or coal, and they would boil water, with a kettle full of water that sat on top of that stove. So it had a certain design. And the first generation of electrically powered kettles looked exactly like the steam powered one. Similarly, the first lights, prior to electricity, people used oil as lights in their homes, and the first generation of electric lights looked like that. So people would relate to it, So if you're talking about a new technology, that's fine, but show me it in a way I can understand it, right? That's what that is, and that's really up to level 4 on this chart by analogy. But when you move into what electricity was then able to do, which was to power your iPhone, your Wi-Fi, and your Netflix subscription, if you'd said those things in 1900, they would have said you're insane. But in the same way, quantum computing can solve problems we don't even know we have. Much as Jeevantika has spoken about earlier, some of the applications are really amazing, but they're almost beyond our imagining, really, the problem and the solution to the problem. Sorry, and in relation then to DNA sequencing, the time it takes to conduct a DNA sequencing exercise is falling dramatically. I mean, the first human genome to be mapped, it took 4 years, and then for a long time it was that length of time. But now it's possible to do it in under a day. But the time it takes goes down and down and down. But it'll be possible to do it in seconds. But what's happening is the economics of this are changing. The economics are changing because of scale and the adoption of technology. But quantum computing will leap this forward hugely, make it extremely cheaper to do. So jumping back then to the core question of digital wellness, the vision that we have here is to begin with the patient's life, quality of life, patient's life and the patient's quality of life. So it's all about building healthcare around the person rather than around the hospital or around the drug manufacturing company. And then the research trajectories are determined by starting first with the patient. In relation to the management of technology, we are adapting a management framework from Intel Corporation. So essentially, any technology management framework needs to fulfill a set of common criteria. So if you were running an IT department for NASA or for Boeing or for Coca-Cola, or if you're running the IT department in a hospital or in any kind of factory, there are certain things you have to do in all cases. You don't really have a choice. You have to have some way of managing technology architecture, the finances, the organization. So I think you get the point. But there is no off-the-shelf management framework you can just get that'll do everything. The management frameworks that are out there, and there are many, have particular purposes. So what's needed is a new management framework which covers the full breadth of what's required. And it would look something like this. So you have 5 levels of increasing maturity. And you're saying so in a hospital, for example, you're saying, right, the technology being used is very much talking about cost, but not talking about value. The way it's positioned is it's about being a technology supplier rather than being a business partner. So the innovation seems to be stifled, right? That's without conducting such a survey, I can kind of guess that would be the outcome. So the idea would be to create a management framework that can be used across the entire ecosystem, and everybody speaking the same language, not only when they talk about things narrowly in technology terms, but equally when they talk about things in terms of process and culture. So then it's much quicker to get to the point and make sure that what we're investing in collectively is indeed achieving the ambitious Citizens Health Charter. We also have to think about the life cycle of innovation. So to take an idea and to put it into production, there are so many people that have to be brought on board, investors and regulators. But fundamentally, we have to think about innovation differently. So I mentioned at the start, we have our governance. We've identified who our stakeholders are: technology companies, startups, universities, policymakers. We've identified who will be on the board, the chair of the board, and then the member organizations, many of them similar to the stakeholders, and then a culture. So we're talking about, we want to focus on business value, but we're talking about innovation and compassion. So compassion is very important. When we're speaking about health, we're speaking about people's lives. So we have to approach everything with great compassion. So in terms of our strategy, I've already given you an outline of our strategy on a slide and our outline budget. So we're estimating that in the first phase of this, we have a budget of about 25 million euros, funded by the members. So the members of this are essentially the Irish government and the large companies who are getting involved with us. So we've all of that in place, and then we have, because we're a member of the European Union, we are also able to avail of European Union funding to improve healthcare. So the companies that we're working with, controversially Huawei, the Chinese company, but also Microsoft and Dell. So at the moment in the world, there is an unfortunate split between China and the US that we're all witnessing. We can only hope that in the future, a more peaceful arrangement can be found between those two countries. And I'm also well aware of how Chinese aggression directed India has been wrong. But again, we can only hope that a peaceful approach can be found. So in summary then, the Institute, it's all about addressing emerging threats and emerging opportunities in healthcare. We want to overcome the reality that currently data and decision-making are disjointed. We want an ambitious Citizens Health Charter, and we want a mechanism to measure the effectiveness of technology, a capability maturity framework for digital wellness. That's my slide deck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, sir. The session was very much informative. I request to all the participants, if you are having any questions or doubt in your mind, so the chat box is open for all of you. You have to put your question on the chat box. Sir, please take a review of chat box, please.
I'm just looking in the chat now. I don't see any. If I'm looking in the right place, I don't see any questions at the moment.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, the chat box is open to all of you right now. Okay. The participant, put your question on the chat box, please.
Maybe I spoke so clearly that I've left nobody in any confusion, perhaps.
Yeah.
Here we go. Share some light on biomimicry concept. Yeah, so biomimicry. So the idea would be, if we talk about biomimicry, the idea is that if you take your senses of sight and hearing and touch and being able to detect smells and tastes and temperatures, one of the members of our group, one of the technology members of our group, has a vision to create biomimicry which is 1,000 times more effective than nature. So if you think of your sense of hearing, the range of frequencies and the volume of, you know, the volume and the frequency of what you can hear. Human sound detection has a limit, right? Similarly with sight, we can only see 550 nanometers light spectrum. So with sensors that are 1,000 times more sensitive, you're able to see a greater range and with a greater precision and greater accuracy than the bio equivalent, the natural equivalent. So the reason for that research is that in the environment around us, there are hazards that we can't detect. So one hazard is, for example, fine particulate dust in the environment that we're breathing in, but we have no mechanism to detect that naturally. So that's an example of where biomimicry would help. If we had something which could detect it, we can see large, we can see snowflakes falling, but we can't see tiny dust particles, submicron, which are the most damaging to our lungs. Similarly with temperature, if you suffer from heat stroke, one of the problems is that you can lose the ability to feel the temperature. So that's another example of where biomimicry would help. So temperature, dust, hydration. We can't easily detect if we're being dehydrated, but a sensor can detect that. So the world of biomimicry, its purpose is to reduce risk of our health, and then it's also from the perspective of recording medical data on each of us in real time. We don't always know the cause and effect with data. That's the purpose of research and innovation, is to find those causes and effects, how they correlate. But certainly if we're measuring things with greater precision and accuracy and greater frequency, then we can do something with the data later. So biomimicry has a huge benefit and a huge purpose and is getting huge attention. And the other piece of biomimicry is to have medically certifiable measurement. So, with the typical smartwatch of today, it's not medically certifiable data. So if you say to your doctor, look, my pulse is 65 beats per minute coming off my watch, the doctor will say, I don't want to hear that. I'll have to measure it myself. We want to have a world in which the GPs, the general practitioner doctors, will accept the reading from the smartwatch without saying it's ridiculous. So biomimicry, real-time measurement of important parameters in a way that we biologically can't do, greater range, greater precision, greater accuracy. Okay. I'm just getting compliments here. So, thank you for all the Danyavad, thank you for all the compliments. But it's an honor and a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak with you today. So thank you very much for your kind words. So I would say for those on the call, if you're looking at career choices and you're thinking about where to direct your energies, healthcare is going to get a huge amount of investment and focus, and so much is needed to be done in healthcare to develop new technologies and new methods. It's a very, very exciting area, and given the fact that we have this very scary COVID crisis, it's a very worthwhile thing to do, to to focus your life on healthcare. So for a long time, healthcare was secondary to the economy in many parts of the world. Now it's the primary focus of all economies. So if you were to target a career in this area, whether it's with quantum computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, even biomimicry, to answer that point again, or any other aspect, you would find a very, very exciting career. The funding will be there. Governments will fund, big companies will fund. The money is going to be there. Okay, so I don't seem to have any other questions. Yeah.
So thank you so much, John sir, the time and knowledge shared with us today. Really, the session was too much informative, and you have explained and elaborated the concept of quantum application and digital wellness in a very music manner. There is so many interesting examples you have shown for understanding. Thank you once again. We require your same cooperation in future also. Thank you so much, sir. Uh, I request all the participants, please have a wait for a 5 minutes. We will start the valedictory program because the guests are joining. Okay, please have a wait for 5 minutes.
Namaste.
John sir, yeah, John sir, please wait for a 5 minutes. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. I'll wait.
कामयाबी का जज्बा है मजबूत हर इरादा अपनी किस्मत खुद लिखेंगे ये खुद से है वादा पत्थर का चीर के सीना मोड़ेंगे हम दरिया अपने कदमों से बनाएंगे एक नया रास्ता नागपुर इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी पैशन फॉर इनोवेशन नागपुर इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी Excellence is our vision. Excellence is our vision.
Yes, Amol sir, my voice is audible.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, Amol sir, my voice is audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Sir, we'll start the valedictory. Okay?
Yeah.
Now it's time for the valedictory of first International E-Summit 2020 on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Again, so very good afternoon and good evening to one and all present here. I heartily welcome you all, the expert speaker, John Chaucer, Jeevantika Madam, and Chief Guest for Valedictory of International Summit 2020, Dr. Amol Deshmukh Sir, Principal, Nagpur Institute of Technology, Nagpur, Maharashtra, India. Sir, I wanted to let you know everyone, we have inaugurated this International E-Summit 2020 on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning on dated 26th of September 2020. Miss Udaya Moni Boppana was the chief guest and the program was presided by our beloved principal, Dr. Amol Deshmukh sir. Every day we have conducted two sessions. The session was delivered by renowned expert keynote speaker from the various countries. I'm very glad to share with you all, we have received the more than 1900 participants were registered and benefited from the various countries. Now it's an honor to have with us today the chief guest of this valedictory program, who is none other than our beloved principal Dr. Amol Deshmukh sir. I request sir to kindly address the gathering. Sir, please.
Very good afternoon to one and all. Mr. John Patrick, Ms. Jeevantika, Professor Jagdish Pimpre, and all the esteemed participants. We have enthusiastically participated in this 3 days International Summit on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. Well, if you look at for the current scenario, as I have said in the inaugural session, this is a very important aspect that we should continue learning and we should explore the things in this particular pandemic which we can utilize and bank upon in the coming days. So I'd like to congratulate Professor Jagdish Pimpre and Department of Information and Technology for organizing such a wonderful event and program. Irrespective of the ill health and medical issues, Professor Jagdish Pimpre has successfully conducted this particular event. So I hope that all the participants might have been definitely benefited by the technical expertise, and we hope that to continue with such kind of events in the future also. So thanks a lot. Yes, Jagdish sir.
Yes, thank you so much, sir, for your kind words of wisdom. Now it's time to propose a vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank our all the esteemed keynote speaker, Moni Boppana ma'am from Malaysia, Arpit sir from India, Gayatri ma'am from Germany, Anju ma'am from London, Shaw sir from Ireland, Jeevantika ma'am from Ireland for accepting our invitation and delivered a session on this International E-Summit 2020 on artificial intelligence and machine learning from their busy schedule. Every keynote speaker have explained everything in a very music manner with so many real life example and demonstration. Hope all the participants have enjoyed all the new things you have elaborated in this Summit 2020. All the session was very much beneficial for all of us to make our career in the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Once again, thank you so much all the keynote speakers. Special mention, my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Arpit Yadav sir. Under his mentorship, we have successfully organized this mega event. My gratitude goes to our president, Shri Anilji Deshmukh. Currently, he is the Home Minister of Maharashtra, for his continuous support and motivation for conduction of such a type of event. My deepest thanks to our CEO, Shri Dr. Rajesh Vaigaonkar sir, and Principal Dr. Amol Deshmukh sir, for showing their faith on us and always keep motivated and support us to conduct such type of events. My heartfelt thanks to all the heads of the department, teaching staff members, non-teaching staff members, and special mention the staff members of IT department of NIT who have directly and indirectly supported us to make the event a grand success. Last but not the least, event won't be possible without participants. So my big thank to all the participants who have joined the event through Zoom platform as well as on YouTube Live. So thank you one and all. So thanks. Have a nice time ahead. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay home. Thank you. The feedback link will be shared on your WhatsApp group as well as on your Telegram group. All the participants are required to fill the feedback form. Your certificate will be sent on your respective mail ID till by today evening. Okay, so thank you, Amol sir. Thank you, Patrick sir. Thank you, Jeevantika madam. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.